The Black Chakra. Trigger, content warning, extreme gore, curse words. A lot of chicks are into chakras. I should say women. I'm not talking about baby birds. I'm also pro-feminist. I mean, I don't go to marches, but in spirit. What I'm trying to say is you usually learn chakras as parts of yoga or Reiki, arts that don't seem too macho. Myself, I'm a guy. I wear mostly t-shirts and jeans, like action movies, play more video games than books, but I've always been interested in new age stuff since I was really young. Maybe I was a magic man in a past lifetime or something. I don't know, but that's me. So when I stopped in for some forgotten kombucha, blue chips and salsa at the supermarket a few days ago and saw a flyer on the bulletin board for a free introductory lesson at a meditation school, I went for it. There was a picture of rainbows and a calm Buddha-like guy with light coming out of his third eye. It got my attention. If nothing else, it promised to be fun. Maybe it could mellow me out from the stress I'd been having at my day job as a Starbucks barista. You're either tensely bored with not enough customers cleaning the same clean spots or rushing coffee orders like a mad clown. No in between. The school looked really nice. A large white space with glossy posters of more rainbows and third eyes. They even had a picture of this cool multicolored unicorn up, which I'm somewhat embarrassed to say was my personal favorite. A bunch of large fluffy white pillows filled the floor instead of chairs, and people were seated on them. There were newcomers like me, but a lot of the folks looked like experienced students. They sat wearing loose, mostly white shirts and pants, complex mala bracelets, and other new age bling. They looked peaceful. A little bald guy with some sharp-looking metrosexual eyeglasses got up, went to the front of the room and introduced himself. "Hello everyone. For those of you new, I'm Golden Starfish." He smiled. That's what it says on my driver's license, although I had to get it changed. There were polite chuckles. Tonight we're going to do a chakra-activating exercise which has the possibility of awaking the Kundalini energies when done thousands of times, and at least promises relaxation temporarily before that. He paused. I think he was waiting for more chuckles, but it wasn't really funny. I didn't expect anything dramatic tonight, but the thought of 1,000 sessions before I maybe got Kundalini energies was annoying. How much did this thing cost? There was a loud buzz. Geo Starfish pressed an intercom system near the entrance. "Hello. It's me, baby," the intercom said through static. G sighed. "Hello, Bernard. You're late." He buzzed the voice in. A thin man wearing black with black sunglasses and beard stubble appeared after a while. He stumbled a little as if drunk, not completely blasted, but it seemed like he'd put a few on. "Hey folks," he said this to everyone, but his sunglasses were turned toward me. I think he was looking me in the eyes. "Welcome to Meditation City, Bernard," Mr. Starfish said. "Please take a seat." The man gave him a vague military salute. "Okay, teach." He sprawled onto a pillow. He didn't seem respectful, but he was comfortable, like he belonged there, or at least like he thought he did. I shrugged and continued listening to Golden. "First, empty your minds. Let the thoughts you have float like clouds through a blue sky. Don't become attached to them. Most of all, breathe." Not too original, but I did as instructed, although to tell the truth, I was medium tense and the clouds got stuck a little in my sky and stayed there. Focus on your root. No further explanation on this, but I wasn't completely lost. I knew about the chakras. The root one was called Muladhara. It was between the legs and connected to primal energy. I drifted my attention there, feeling a little self-conscious. Now the sacral chakra. The sacral one was called Svadhisthana. It was in the spot where old guys get hernias. It represents sexual energy, which I always get mixed up with primal energy. What's the difference? Golden Starfish went through the rest of the 7 chakras, ending at the crown chakra Sahasrara, which represents the universe. Some systems use 12 chakras. Some use 100, but the most popular is the 7 chakra system, thus Golden Starfish meditation. We ended at the crown. He went on about becoming one with the universe for a bit, which I've heard a gazillion times, but don't get, really. I did feel mildly relaxed as promised, but a little spaced out. Just as we'd done a count up, we did a countdown going from the crown to the root. It was supposed to ground us, but I didn't feel quite right. Golden Starfish thanked us for coming. A few of the new people had already left. There were about 10 still there, including me. Their expressions varied from enthusiastic to not. A few minutes later the old students mostly disappeared, but Bernard was still on his pillow. He seemed to be meditating to himself, like he hadn't registered it was the end of class. His eyes were closed and he was smiling. Not in a mellow Thich Nhat Hanh way. His teeth were bared. Golden Starfish told us to wait. He went over to an electric teapot I hadn't noticed sitting in a corner and made us newbies paper cups of tea. It was green, although it tasted a little ricey also. "So what do you guys think?" he asked us. There were general murmurs of appreciation, some more sincere than others. I spoke. It held my interest, but I'm on a limited income. "How much does this thing cost?" Starfish smiled serenely. "There are no scholarships." I hadn't asked if there were. I didn't have much, but to assume I'd be begging for a handout ruffled my feathers. It got us off to a bad start. "It's $100 a session. You must sign up for at least 2." There was a murmur this time, not so appreciative. Several more newbies went out the door. "That's almost $5,000, I said. "A little more with tax." I shook my head. I could never afford that. "What the hell," a woman said. "I'll do it." She looked like a very old hippie, except she wore a lot of jewelry that wasn't costume. Diamonds, turquoise, gold, and jade, stuff like that. Everyone else was either in my position of definitely not having the cash or had to seriously think about it. I sighed. "Hey," someone shouted from behind. It startled me. It was Bernard, his eyes probably open wide through his sunglasses. He was grinning at me. "I can't take everyone, but you seem like a good kid. I'll teach you how to meditate myself. $10 a gig. You won't have to pay me until you get results, and that should be almost immediately." "You serious?" I asked. "Yeah. I've been doing meditation stuff since before the universe started. We'll meet in my apartment tonight. I'll show you the Black Chakra." I must have looked a little hesitant. The price was great, but I didn't like the idea of meeting in a stranger's apartment. And what the fuck was the Black Chakra? The 7-chakra system had red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, purple or white, conflicting reports about that, but black? Bernard gave a lopsided smile. "I don't bite." Honestly, he didn't look the serial killer type. I'm not a big guy, but Bernard was so skinny I could have easily overtaken him if I had to, and he hadn't shown any signs of violence, just weirdness. But weren't chakras themselves a little weird? Bernard looked over at the head teacher. "Stand up for me, Goldie, sweetheart." Golden Starfish grimaced slightly and his mouth tightened. Bernard has been with us many years. That I thought this was a teaching recommendation shows my naivety or eagerness. I should have recognized Golden's grimace and tightened mouth as the diplomatic New Age equivalent of a thumbs down. A noncommittal cosmic way of saying, run and run like hell. Bernard's a fucking lunatic. I only wish I had picked up on this, because Bernard turned out to be worse, and now I'm involved with something truly horrifying I wish I'd never got involved in, but all the wishing in the world can't change it. Here's what happened next. Bernard wasted no time in setting up the appointment. He gave me directions and told me to meet him that night at 12. Midnight seemed a little drastic, but I had the next day off. If the Starbucks manager asked me to do a last-minute cover for someone else, I'd let it go to answering machine. I was usually good at showing up at a dime's notice, so I didn't feel guilty. I went home, took a shower, and watched Game of Thrones until it was around time to get there. His apartment was in a lousy part of town, but not far away. My Subaru was second-hand and dented, so I didn't think anyone would steal it. I found a spot right in front of Bernard's building, rang the doorbell, was buzzed in, and took a creaky elevator up 3 flights. There was a funky-looking Christmas wreath on Bernard's door, weird because it was the middle of summer. He must have not bothered to take it off. It looked old. I knocked on the door, Bernard opened it and sat me down on an even older-looking couch. I was afraid of bedbugs. Most people don't have them, but the couch looked that bad. "Can I get you something to drink?" he asked. I shrugged. "A beer? We're going high enough tonight. I wouldn't recommend anything that could throw off the mental equilibrium. How about a ginger ale?" I wasn't really ecstatic over soda, but it was a drink, why not? He put a can of ShopRite brand next to me on this rickety little coffee table I thought might fall apart. He may have seemed harmless, but don't think I didn't check that the tab was intact. I might have been paranoid, but Jeffrey Dahmer probably seemed harmless too. "You like it? The soda? The place?" Bernard smiled too long. I looked around the apartment. There wasn't much furnishing. A chipped wooden desk. A no HD TV. A nondescript scratched formica table in the eating area. The only thing that marked it as the eating area, and old food that should have been in the garbage, was scattered all over it. The walls were yellow and the paint was somewhat cracked. There were more than a few cobwebs. "Great," I lied. I put the soda can down. I was beginning to regret this. I'm no snob, but there's such a thing as abuse of your roost. I wasn't asking for the Hilton. I wasn't asking for something better than a simple dorm room, but Jesus. Bernard had really let his place go. It made you wonder where his head was at. "Okay," Bernard said, breath in and breath out. The golden starfish routine again, I thought. "I'm going to speak to you in an ancient primal language. Ooh? You won't understand it consciously. I hadn't heard this before. Your subconscious is the universe. Your personality is a speck in the universe." This was getting wordy. I didn't like being considered a speck. That was when Bernard began to talk nonsense. I have no idea where it came from. Suddenly everything felt still. Then the room disappeared and all there was clear light. Before I had a chance to be scared, the light turned bright crimson red and I saw images of cavemen inside it, killing animals, making savage love, huddled around cave fires. The light turned orange and I was surrounded by the naked bodies of men and women gyrating in a confused erotic ecstasy. Holy shit, I thought, I'm going through the chakras, but really seeing them, like I never have before. The light turned yellow and I was inside a sea the same color, floating on my back. Bernard was swimming next to me. "It's incredible, isn't it?" he said, "and you ain't seen nothing yet." The yellow light morphed into green. The ocean turned green with it. Dolphins leapt out of frothy waves, prancing and dancing around us. My heart opened and they smiled. "This is incredible," I said. "There's more," Bernard told me, turning to me in the water. Now it was blue and we swam into a kind of hole. That's the only way I can describe it. Suddenly we were on another planet where everything was aquamarine. There were crystal palaces, seas, fertile land. A tall space alien came towards us. He had the face of E.T., but the body of a basketball player. He looked at us benevolently. "Greetings from Sirius, Earthlings." "Wow," I said. Bernard nodded. We were swept into an indigo forest. Unicorns and fairies danced next to us, around a large fire. I'd never felt such good vibes. We use the word happiness to describe a mild, pleasant emotion, but I could feel now this was true happiness. Completely clear and fresh. "Nice, isn't it?" Bernard whispered in my ear. Nice was an understatement. Just as fast as we'd gotten there, we shot into the sky, going farther and farther into the heavens until we reached an ethereal realm of nothing yet everything. Words fail me because it's beyond human words to describe. I realized empirically for the first time in my life that we really are all one. "Okay," Bernard said. "Okay, what?" I asked, still surrendering to the oneness of the universe. "The Black Chakra is next on our agenda. Surprisingly, even in my enlightened state, I felt trepidation. Maybe we shouldn't go there, I said. We've gone everywhere else. Bernard was laughing near my face. It felt too close. The Black Chakra's supposed to be the ultimate. I've seen it from very, very far away, but I was waiting for a fellow adventurer to really sink my teeth in. We've gone through the 7. Why don't we call it a day? Faint heart never fucked a pig. I didn't want to fuck a pig, but even as I thought this, we were traveling upward or downward or maybe sideways. My sense of direction was lost toward a black throbbing gelatinous mass the size of a small planet. I don't like what's happening, I said. Then we burst into it. I thought I'd be coated in black goo, but we weren't. We burst right through the mass and wound up dry in a vast desert landscape. A murky, smoky sky above us. Not even cactus plants or briars lay in wait, just sand and emptiness. It was very hot. I sat down. We are here. Now let's go. Hold on. I got a side view of Bernard squinting his eyes. Even through the dark glasses, the sun was probably doing a job on them. I know my eyes felt a little like fried eggs. We've got to acclimate. Bernie, I said, feeling a little silly because for all his faults he didn't seem like the sentimental gooey guy you'd call Bernie. There was Bernie Sanders, but that's a different story. I don't want to acclimate. This place sucks. Harsh words. I looked at him, hoping we'd zoom out any second. I would have made it happen myself, but I didn't know how. Don't know if Bernard did either. Look into the distance, he said. There's nothing. I shook my head. Look better. Oh. There was someone in the distance. He looked short. And blue. What the hell? I said. I don't know, Bernard said. I've seen them the same distances now, but never closer. Perhaps they're archetypes of little Lord Krishna. We'd seen fairies and unicorns and dolphins and aliens from Cyrus. Why not Lord Krishna? Hell, maybe he was Blue Jesus for all I knew. As it got closer, I saw the figure was a kid, a boy, but something didn't look right about him. He was very thin, like someone sick. Or a corpse. When he was almost in front of me, I noticed his eye sockets were sunken in, forming shadows where you couldn't see his eyes, just darkness. He had a limp expression on his face, not a smile or a frown, blank. I'm scared, I said. Of a skinny kid? Bernard asked. He looks weird. Of course he looks weird. He's blue. Weird's a judgment value, anyway. I looked off into the distance so I wouldn't have to look at this child and saw more blue kids coming. Let's go, Bernard. Don't worry, let's wait till they greet us. They don't seem that welcoming. I don't know how to get out of here. It kind of happens when it happens. We waited. God help us. Eventually a whole tribe of about 50 skinny blue kids surrounded us. They were sky blue, which could have looked nice in theory, but in reality looked like an unhealthiness of their otherwise smooth flesh. It reminded me of babies delivered dead. They wore white like the meditation center hippies had, but dirty. The whites had turned grey and were haphazardly ripped in some places like worn socks. The boys stared. At least I thought they stared. The shadows in their hollows pointed in our direction, their mouths in tight lines. They had the weakly attitude of patients in a later stage of TB or something. Well, Bernard said, I can't say they look all that pleasant, but at least they're youngsters. One of them nearer us opened his mouth slowly, almost reflectively. It could have been a yawn or a weak objection. His mouth was full of rows and rows of sharp fangy teeth. Bernard spoke some more. That's a surprise. I took a look at the fangs of the blue boy's mouth. They seemed to go on forever. I think we should run. They're not doing anything, Bernard said. As he said this, the blue boy's eyes nearly popped out of their shrunken sockets, almost in unison. This made them look manic and hungry. I didn't need any other sign to start taking off, but amazingly Bernard did. Hello, he said, we're your friends. He sounded annoyed more than anything. I guess he figured skinny blue kids, hot desert, the Black Chakra was a write-off. After valuable time getting there, he was St. I had sprinted about 10 feet away and was getting ready to bolt when I looked back and saw a blue kid leap onto Bernard. The boy dug his teeth into the man's leg. Blood spurted from Bernard across the hot desert, glittering in the unforgiving sunlight. He screamed. The group of blue children were now spread around Bernard, their sharp mouths open wide. They didn't look so weak at the moment. I thought of running. I was going to. I'm not a hero, just an average guy, nice enough, but not wanting to shoulder a lot of responsibilities like bravery, but something else was going on here, a push-to-the-wall reaction, a kind of instinct to help that I didn't know I had. Almost against my will, I found myself running back to Bernard. I zigzagged through the blue group avoiding their mouths and pulled Bernard away from them. I slung his arm around my shoulder, hoping he could run at least somewhat. We both took off. The blood spurting from Bernard's leg had almost turned black. The chomp mark was deep. The blue-eyed children took off after us. "Geez!" Bernard screamed as he ran, "Geez!" "Not so harmless," I muttered through my grasping breath. I'd never been a jock, and the running began to wear on me, never mind my compatriot. "This is terrible," Bernard said. "I'm injured." "Keep running the best you can," I said. The desert was miles and miles of flat land, no place to hide, but eventually we went over a large sandy hill and the blue kids didn't seem to follow. Bernard stopped. "We lost them." This statement was more hopeful than logical. How could we have lost them? It was basically flat land and they were just a small hill away. I was trying to get him to run faster when Bernard faltered. To tell the truth, I was out of breath myself and fell to my knees, feeling like I was going to faint. I realized if they wanted us, they'd have us soon anyway, and I could only run so far. And Bernard had a bite taken out of him, his spurting leg. I took off my shirt and wrapped it around his wound. Bernard had lost blood. He was in a daze. No fluid loss on my part, but I was in a daze too. "I made a mistake," Bernard said. "I thought the Black Chakra would be different." "How?" I asked him. "It wouldn't be like this. We could snap back to Earth any second. We've just got to wait it out. When we get back, I'll get stitches, those creatures will be gone." "But what if we don't snap back?" "For God's sakes, kid. I'm trying to be positive." Positive is far from definite. Maybe there is something to law of attraction making things working out all right, but positivity can just as easily be wishful thinking. Bernard was panting. He didn't look good. "All we have to do is wait," he repeated. "They're just over the hill," I said, more to myself than anyone. "Don't even know why they stopped running after us in the first place." That actually made him start moving a little, but after a few feet, blood came spurting out of the shirt bandage and Bernard just plopped down on the ground again. "Hope for the best, son." "I mean for you," Bernard said. "I can't go any farther." I felt funny about leaving Bernard there, and really, where was I supposed to go? Besides, who knew? We'd zonked out of the other places. Maybe we'd get out of this place before chaos. I looked down at his foot again. Crimson was pouring onto the ground. The shirt was as tight as I could have made it, but it wasn't a professional bandage. Then the dessert didn't seem as solid, and everything looked slightly out of focus, like movies sometimes did when I was really little, before they all went digital. We were starting to lift off the ground. "It's happening," Bernard said. His excitement was manic. I felt pretty relieved myself. "We're out of here," he laughed. The laughter made his leg shake and he grimaced in pain. While he was grimacing, 100 blue kids reached us like they'd only stopped for reinforcements. Now they were coming on strong. Shit, I'd thought. I swear, they were like a locomotive. Fast as a speeding car. If they were blue, it would have followed they probably had a couple of other tricks up their sleeves. I mean, I shouldn't have assumed they were normal in any way, including the way they would run. I looked up at the sky. I was starting to go, my feet were off the ground, but it was too late. Two of the kids leapt onto me and dragged me right back to earth. Then more. I kept fighting so they couldn't get a grip on me with their teeth, but it took all my strength. They left me for later and swarmed Bernard. They could tell he was weak from his leg wound, and also, he'd never been such a manly man in the first place. I think at least 90 blue kids fell on him like a pack of ants on a picnic sandwich. All I could hear was his screaming. There was a lot of blood. Then a lot of stuff that looked like torn meat where Bernard used to be alive. At least that's what I could make out between the blue little monsters gathered around him. I could still hear him screaming, but I wasn't sure if the noise was just a reverberation in my mind from like PSTD. How could torn meat scream? I felt myself whooshing up, and away. One kid who wasn't going to take no for an answer jumped onto me even after I was halfway into the sky, but a swift and hard kick to his head got rid of him. The kids fell and the desert fell away. There was a psychedelic light show for about 5 or 10 minutes. Purple, green, blue. What might have been the suns of alternate universes shining, but I was whizzing by too fast to even take things in much. Then there was mist around my body and I felt like a non-solid ghost. Suddenly, boom, I was back solid in Bernard's apartment sitting on the floor. My ginger ale can had tipped over, covering some of the litter on the ground with its liquid foam. The ugly furniture. I could smell food that had been sitting out for days and something else very strong that hadn't been there before. I smelled cooper and salt. I turned and what I saw on the couch. Bloody meat held together by a limp skeleton, gore thick round it. The only way I knew this was Bernard was his black hipster sunglasses had fallen off what little was left of his face and were sitting in what I think were the remnants of his lap. He'd come back too, so to speak. Very so to speak. I threw up. There were scratches over my skin. I was bleeding, but relatively little. I didn't notice. To tell the truth, I was only grateful to be alive. I found my car. The hubcaps had been stripped, but otherwise it was okay. I drove home. The cuts were too deep to put bacitracin on and not deep enough to go to the hospital. I didn't know what to do with them. I finally settled on an old bottle of hydrogen peroxide in my medicine cabinet, hoping it wasn't out of date. It stung bad, but I felt a little sanitized. I did what I could with Johnson Band-Aids, which wasn't much. Tomorrow I'd have to get some proper stuff probably from the drug store. I prayed to the universe I didn't have rabies or worse and went to sleep. It's been a couple of weeks since all that's happened and what I thought would be the end of it. I read in the paper they discovered Bernard's decomposed body. It was a few days later and the body liquefied, washed out any fingerprints. So that was that. I believed that was that until a few days ago. Everyone goes to bed in my neighborhood fairly early, but I was up thinking about Bernard's corpse. The blue kids. The Black Chakra. All that had happened to me. I couldn't sleep. I decided to go for a walk. My place of residence isn't Beverly Hills or anything, but unlike poor Bernard's, you can walk there when it's dark. I had a morning shift at Starbucks and if I was going to get even an hour of rest, I realized I had to do something. I put on my clothes and slipped out the door hoping the air would make me better. I was in the middle of distressing, not exactly enjoying my walk and my thoughts yet, but calmer when I heard footsteps behind me, not too near, but not too far away. I turned around and there was a blue boy in dirty cotton clothes about a half a block behind me. He was at the first stage I'd seen them wan and anemic looking, his eyes unseen, this time guarded by the shadows of the night. I ran home. I didn't look back, so I don't know if I lost the creature or not. Maybe it's just waiting. I got back to my place, ran into my apartment and locked the door, my heart pounding. Since then, I've seen the blue boys several times. Sometimes small groups of them. Always when no one else is on the street. Each time I run and wind up back at my door. I know they're fast enough to catch me, but they're not doing anything. Yet. I think somehow in our journey, Bernard and me appear to have opened up. I guess you'd call it a tunnel leading back from the Black Chakra to this world for the blue boys to come through. At least, that's what I think. Or maybe everything is chaos and it just happened randomly. In any case, they're here and now, God help me, as well as anyone who runs into these creatures, because one thing I can tell you, they don't stay anemic for long. Also, a word of warning. If you ever go to a meditation class and anyone offers to take you to a place called the Black Chakra, for God's sakes, just say no.